So, Chair, President, members, guests, my life as a scaly brat. My life as a scaly brat started the minute I was born. A bit of an unusual title to give myself, but my dad was in the Royal Air Force, and scaly brat was the affectionate term given to children of people in the forces. So through my dad being in the Air Force, I was lucky to be one of those scaly brats. And what I want to do tonight is take you through what that life was like, both the positives and the negatives of being a child, living abroad. And I'm going to focus particularly on two places that I lived abroad, which was Singapore and Cyprus. I'm going to start with Singapore, because I was this tiny when we went to Singapore. I was only 4, and it's also where my younger brother was born, just before my 6th birthday. So the first memory I have of us living in Singapore was right in the middle in a 14-storey block of flats, right by Orchard Road, if anybody of you know Singapore. And then quite soon after that we moved to this, what seemed enormous, big 4-bedroomed house with a big veranda out the front, a drive, big wrought iron gates at the front of the drive, and a nice grass lawn that went all the way around to the back of the house. I have very fond memories of this house because it was where I started school, it was where my brother was born, and there were lots of other children nearby, and we all used to run around in each other's gardens, just in a pair of knickers, in and out of paddling pools. And that brings me to one of the very first positives of this scaly brat title, was the camaraderie that we had as kids. We'd literally go round as this massive big family of kids. The other thing I remember about Singapore at that young age of 5 was getting off the bus one day, and there was this massive hill from the top of the bus down to our house, and the heavens opened, absolutely opened, and me and my mum were running down this hill to get home, and I can still feel it to this day, the heat, the humidity, and the fact that the rain was warm. And I can still remember those feelings today quite vividly, because I found it very strange that the rain was warm. The other thing I remember from Singapore is they had these houses or shacks on the coast called kampongs for where the locals lived. And I remember being invited out to a birthday party at one of these kampongs. And I remember walking up to it and thinking, oh, it smells horrible here, because it was quite, a very poor area. And I walked in, and there was all these kids around this table, and on the table was rice and vegetables. And I looked at my mum and I said, this isn't a birthday party. There should be cakes and jelly and ice cream and things like that. And I remember my mum saying to me, no, this is how they have birthday parties here. And I think that was probably my very first introduction to being aware of different cultures. Being in Singapore, this was a completely different thing for me, and certainly for learning about cultures, and that stayed with me through my whole life. So now the disadvantages of this being abroad was the plane ride home. And that was not fun coming back from Singapore. My brother was 6 weeks old. We had to stop at a place called Gang, which is now Mauritius, I think. And my brother screamed all the way from Singapore back to Bryce Norton. Literally, all the way. The people on the plane must have absolutely hated us. So then our next trip abroad after a short stint in Lincolnshire, was to Cyprus. And at this point I was 10, so I really remember the lifestyle that we had. And probably the best bit was the short school day. We'd go to school at 8 in the morning and we'd be finished by 12:30. And it was great. We'd get off the bus, jump over the fence, in through the garden. My mum would have lunch ready and a drink. And then as soon as we were finished, we were out catching the 1:30 bus down to the beach. And I literally did that every day. When my dad got in from work at 2, him and my mum and my brother would join us all down at the beach, and we'd spend the afternoon at the beach. Being on the RAF base, it always felt very safe, and there was about 4 miles of coast, and all along the beach was different clubs. You had the sabbatical club, the rowing club, the sailing club, the water ski club, all scattered along this stretch of beach. And our club of choice was the water ski club. So I used to go water skiing most days after school. And we'd have these barbecues at the weekend. So at the water ski club, each family would take their own meat, salads, pita breads, whatever. And we had these massive oil drums that had been cut in half lengthways, and they were just filled with charcoal, and every Sunday there'd be this absolutely massive barbecue. And in the winter we'd still have those barbecues because it was still nice and warm, but the difference was on a Friday there'd be a convoy of cars heading up to the Troodos Mountains. We'd ski all day Saturday and Sunday morning, and then we'd all head back to the water ski club for a barbecue on the Sunday afternoon. So for me, as you can imagine, at 11, 12 years old, I just thought I was in heaven. You know, it was really, really good. The disadvantages of being in Cyprus was when we arrived as a child, you could miss out educationally because they didn't have the national curriculum at that point. So if you were being taught something in one place and then you went to another place and they'd either already taught it, assuming you already knew it, you'd miss out. So that was one of the disadvantages. Another advantage was the friendship groups. We used to go around in big groups, and it was wonderful. And when I came back to the UK and went to a non-forces school, I couldn't believe it. It was little cliques of 2 and 3 people, and it was hard to break into. So I learned many character-forming values and traits as my life as a scaly brat: a lifelong interest in different cultures, a sense of camaraderie and belonging, and many happy memories. But with the limitations of long flights and travel, occasionally missing out educationally, and sometimes feeling a bit anxious at all the moving around, the positives and the life experiences far outweighed any negatives.